Okay, we're up to the beginning of the fourth parak, Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. The Mishnah says, the Mishnah is talking about the mitzvahs of tzitzis. Hatcheles eina ma'akeves es halavan, v'halavan eina ma'akeves es hatcheles. So what this means is, at least again at this point in the Gemara will clarify this, but at this point what it means is that you have in the mitzvah min HaTorah, we don't have it anymore because we don't have tcheles anymore, but historically you would have partially white tzitzis and partially tcheles, blue, whatever color tcheles is. So the halacha is that although they're two separate mitzvahs, halavan eina ma'akeves hatcheles and ma'akeves halavan. Rashi explains what this means is, if all I have is lavan, I'm still yaitz to the mitzvah, even if I don't put any tcheles. Or if all I have is tcheles, I'm yaitz to the mitzvah. This Mishnah is the reason why we're able to mekayim the mitzvah tzitzis nowadays. We don't have tcheles anymore, so all we have is lavan. But the halacha is that the lavan and tcheles are not mutually exclusive. I can mekayim the mitzvah with kuloi lavan, or I can mekayim the mitzvah and kuloi tcheles. Similarly, the Mishnah says, Tefillah shel yad in a makeves shel roish and makeves shel yad. The shel yad and shel roish are not the two separate concepts. If let's say all you have is a shel roish, so put on the shel roish. If all you have is a shel yad, then put on the shel yad. We don't say that it's all or nothing. Each one is a mitzvah that you're able to accomplish even without the other one. Okay, so the Mishnah said that if tcheles is not ma'akev lavan is not ma'akev tcheles. Again, the simple pshat is, what this means is that if all you have is white strings, like we have nowadays, wear it. If all you have are blue strings, wear it. Either one, you can mekayim one without the other. Says the Gemara, Lema Masis and like Rabbi. Our Mishnah seems not like Rabbi. The Tanya, what's Rabbi Shita? Ur isem oisai. Ur isem is plural, oisai is singular. What does that mean? So Melamed Shemakvin says that to Rabbi. Rabbi says, you cannot mekayim mitzvah one without the other. Meaning, according to Rabbi, nowadays, you can't have tzitzis. Why? You need both tzitzis and tcheles. If you have one without the other, not mekayim the mitzvah. Urisem, that you have to have both. You see, plural, the white and the blue. Oisai, singular, meaning they have to have a combination of two in one corner, and if you don't have both, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. So our Mishnah, the simple reading of our Mishnah, is not like Rabbi. It says in the Gemara Vayter, Chama say no, you can have one without the other. So it seems to be that our Mishnah is like the Rabbanon and not like Rabbi. Now, before we address whether our Mishnah could stim with Rabbi, the Gemara speaks out. My time with the Rabbi. Where does Rabbi get it from? That you have to have both, because it's like this. The pasuk says, "Kanaf pesil techelas." It says kanaf. Pisil techelas. Now, knaf means the corner. Now, here's the explanation like this. Knaf, the Gemara understands, means white. Why? Because knaf means the corner. That means the beged. The average beged, that the majority of begadim that are made, historically, are white. They're made of linen and white. So, knaf is another, allusion to white, because it has to be similar to the beged. So, knaf means white, and then techeles is blue. And what does the pasuk say? Ur isam oso. You have to have them both. That's how Rabbi understands it. My time with the Rabbi, ha kanaf min kanaf. It says that you should put tzitzis on the kanaf. Kanaf means the corner, and the average beged corner was white, which means that's alluding to the white tzitzis, so that's the white. And then it says psil techeles, which is the blue. And what does the pasuk say? B'amrachman urisem oso. You have to see them both. You have to see urisem oso. You have to see them both together. And if adikr tevai b'chad, you need both. And if you don't have both, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. That's Shitas Rabbi. The Chum disagree. The Rabbanan say no. Urisei oisai kol chad l'chudei mashma. Urisei oisai means you see whatever you could see. You don't have to be both. You see all white, you mekayim the mitzvah. You see all blue, you mekayim the mitzvah. Okay, so according to Rabbi, if you have white without blue or blue without white, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. So our Mishnah seems not like Rabbi, because our Mishnah says hatcheles ein ma'akev is a love, and a love is ma'akev is tcheles. So our Mishnah seems not like Rabbi. So the Gemara is going to offer a couple attempts of how Rabbi can shtim with our Mishnah. It says the Gemara, attempt number one. No, both. Yeah, both. So the Gemara says, "Lema like a Rebbe." So our Mishnah seems not like Rebbe. So the Gemara attempts number one. Amar Rabbi Rav, Afila Tema Rebbe. Really, our Mishnah could shim with Rebbe. Meaning, really, our Mishnah could agree that you need both tcheles and white. And if you don't have tcheles and white together, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. The Mishnah says that tchela eina ma'akeves alav and alag ma'akeves tcheles. So what does the Mishnah mean? The Gemara says, "Leinitzach ha'kadim." What the Mishnah means is like this. Generally, when you're putting in the order, you have blue and you have white strings. Which one do you put in first? So the Gemara is telling us the general order is you put the white ones in first. Again, we don't have them anyway, so it's not for us to know. But historically, you would put the white one in first. Why? Because again, knaf means white, psil techeles. So what's the order of the pasuk? Ha knaf, psil techeles. What our Mishnah means when it says that they're not ma'akev each other is not that you don't need both. You need both, but the order doesn't matter. That's how the Gemara interprets it according to Rabbi. It's mitzvah to put the white threads into the garment before the tchelas threads. But if you went out of order, you're yotza elashachisa mitzvah. You're yotza, but you're missing the mitzvah. So obviously, that's a strange lashon. I'm yotza, but I'm missing the mitzvah. If I'm missing the mitzvah, I'm not yotza. So says the Gemara. My chisa mitzvah. Go to the next page. Ile mechisa mitzvah de lavan v'kai mitzvah de tchelas l'Rabbi akuvim akva adadi. What does it mean that I'm yotza, but I'm not makayim the mitzvah? If you're not makayim the mitzvah, you're not yotza. So says the Gemara, Am Rav Yidam Rav, shechisa mitzvah asa mitzvah. My chisa mitzvah, deli avim mitzvah namuchar. This is, I think, how we would understand this, which is, you're yotza, but you're not makayim the mitzvah. What does that mean? You're not makayim mitzvah min amuvchar. Meaning, you're yotza b'diavad. Okay, so according to the Amar Rav Yidam Rav, our Mishnah means that you need both the white and the blue, but when the Mishnah says halavan ein makav is a tcheles and a tcheles ein makav is halavan, it means the order doesn't matter. Meaning, normally you're supposed to put the white in first, but if you put the blue in first, it's fine. So let me ask you a question. What does the Mishnah say? If you read the lashon of the Mishnah, hatcheles ein makav is halavan, halavan ein makav is a tcheles. If the ruling really is that you should put the white in first, but if you put the blue in first, you're yotza, why do you need both? Hatcheles in a makav is 11 is 1. 11 in a makav is tcheles is 2. If the point of the Mishnah is that if I put the blue in first, I'm yotza, that's the whole point of the Mishnah, then what are the two lines telling me? The Gemara says, Ha tinoch lavan de ena makav is tcheles. I get it. According to you, I get it. You say lavan ena makav is tcheles, meaning although the lavan is supposed to be first, ena makav is tcheles. If you put the tcheles first, you yotza, fine. But tcheles ena makav is lavan maihi. Then what's the next line of the Mishnah? You're supposed to put it in the white first. The Mishnah's point is if you put the blue in first, you yotza. And then what's the next line of the Mishnah? If you put in the white in first, you yotza. I don't understand. You don't need two lines to tell me one halacha. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you the answer. What it means is like this. Why is he supposed to put the white in first? Because the pasuk says haknaf, and knaf is white. Why is knaf white? Because knaf means strings that are like the beged. The average beged was white, so the strings are white. So knaf is an allusion to white. Haknaf, psil techelas, white and then blue. But if I did blue first, I'm fine. What if it's a beged that's entirely blue? The Gemara assumes that if it's a beged entirely blue, you should put the blue in first. And that, the Mishnah means, if I put the white in first, I'm yotza. So what the Mishnah, the reason why the two halachas is like this, the Gemara is assuming that when the pasuk says put white in first, because knaf, it doesn't necessarily mean you always put white in first. What it means is, look at the beged. What is the beged made of? What's the color? If the beged is white, put the white in first. If you put the blue in first, you're fine. If the beged is blue, put the blue in first. But if you put the white in first, you're fine. So both ones, that's the two halachas. If the beged is white, then you're supposed to put white first, but if you put blue first, you're fine. If the beged is blue, you're supposed to put blue in first, but if you put white in first, you're fine. That's the two halachas of the Mishnah. Okay, it's Marnami. We actually have a brisa that speaks all this out. The brisa says, Amar Levi l'Shmuel. Levi said to Shmuel Aryech, king. That's what he was like a compliment, a big tamachacham. Don't sit down until you explain this to me. Mahi. What are the two teachings of the Mishnah? What am I learning? So Amarle, if the beged is white, you're supposed to put the white in first. My taima haknaf bin knaf. Because haknaf, which means the strings that are like the beged, which if the beged is white, the string is supposed to be white. That's first. Then psil techeles. But v'yaktim techeles 11 less lamba. But if you did blue first, you're fine. That's halacha number 1. So he speaks it out. Tinuch lavan dein makvis techeles. Techeles and makvis 11 mahi. So what's the second halacha of the Mishnah? So he says, Amar Rami Bar Chama le'nitzacha l'tal shkul techeles. The case is the beged is entirely blue. If the beged is entirely white, you should put the white in first. If you reverse the order, it's fine. If the beged is entirely blue, you should put the blue in first. And if you reverse the order, it's fine. The mitzvah dum techeles bereisha, the knaf min knaf, the aktim lovin bereisha less lanba. Now the Gemara is making an assumption that when the pasuk says haknaf, which we're interpreting as white, which means you're supposed to put the white in first, that doesn't necessarily mean you always put the white in first. What it means is, look at the beged. If the beged is white, put the white in first. If the beged is blue, put the blue in first. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, midi tziva kagarim. Do you think the Torah is just going based on every single case, based on the color of the beged? Rav, meaning in other words, Rav is bothered by this. Rav thinks it makes more sense the Torah is going to give you rules that are hard and fast rules. If the rule is white first, always go white first. If the rule is blue first, always go blue first. Rava does not believe that it's likely that the Torah is basically saying, look at the beged. If the beged is white, go white first. If the beged is blue, go blue first. It doesn't make sense that it would be so up in the air. Pick a lane. And therefore Rava says it makes more sense to say haknaf means white. Always go white first, even if it's entirely blue. Okay, that's Rava's take. So according to Rava, how do you explain whether our Mishnah is according to Rabbi? Again, our Mishnah says that white and blue are not ma'ak of each other. The simple pshat is, if I just have all white, I'm fine. If I just have all blue, I'm fine. The problem is that's not like Rabbi. So the attempt number one is that really no. Our Mishnah holds you need both. So what does it mean? It's not ma'ak of each other. It means the order is not ma'akiv. Rava doesn't like that. So what does Rava say? Elam Rava le'nitzucha ele gardumen. What it means is like this. This is if we're learning the halachas, the Mishnah Yomi. This is what it's talking about. There's a length of tzitzis string. The length of the tzitzis string is called 12 gudlin, 12 thumb widths. Okay, let's say it's 5 inches, whatever it is. What if I had the proper amount and then some of the strings ripped off? Now we assume that we're talking about the tzitzis that you have on the corner of your baguette is made up of two parts. There's the gedil. The gedil is the part that has the knots and the chuliyos wrapped around, and then there's the strings that hang on the bottom, that's the psil. We're assuming that we're talking about the part after the knots. I have the whole baguette, it's properly lengthed, and then some of it rips off. Says the Gemara, what it means is the stubs that remain are fine. What does it mean? The igardim tchilas v'koi lavan, the igardim lavan v'koi tchilas lasan ba. What it means is like this. If I have, let me just grab a fish 1 second. If I have, according to, this is how Rava interprets the Mishnah. Really, you need blue and white. You need blue and white. So what does the Mishnah mean that they're not makiv each other? What it means is like this. Let's say I have the proper length to start, and all the blue ones ripped off, and there are only little stubs left. We'll define how big the stubs are. They're only little stubs. The halacha is, if all the white are still intact, you're fine. And vice versa. If all the white ripped off and you just have stubs, is the blue there? You're fine. Meaning, as long as you have two things, you're fine. You need one color to be entirely intact, and the other color to still have stubs. As long as you got stubs, you're good to go. Now, where are the stubs? That means that it rips off after the knots. You still have some stubs left. I'll tell you the exact length of the stub in a moment. That's what it means. So when the Mishnah says lavan in makavas tchelis, chelis makavas lavan, it doesn't mean you don't need both. You need both. What it means is you don't need both to be full length at the end of the day. As long as they started with the right length and one color is fully intact, the other color can be a stub. That's what the Gemara means. Now, how you still need a stub though. They can't be entirely ripped off to the knot. They still need to have something left. What is the length of a stub that is the minimum amount that's still acceptable? Says the Gemara, as long as the stubs of the tzitzis are there, it's kosher, and the stubs of the azov. This is referring to the paraduma. As long as you have the stub, the amount of the hyssop, whatever it is, it's not for now, you're kosher. You need the stubs left. Now, what's the length of a stub? Again, you need it to be the original shear, the full size, which is 12 gudlin. I need one color to be fully intact. I got that. But all my tchelas things ripped. So you come to the rabbi says, listen, you got stubs left? You're fine. What's a stub? Says the Gemara, Amr bar Hamduri Amr Shmuel, Kedela Anvan. It has to be long enough to make a slip knot. So as long as it's enough that you could basically, there. So I don't know how much you need to be able to fold, pull a slip knot. That's it. As long as it's long enough to make a slip knot, that's you fine. That is the shear. And if it has less than that, then you have a problem. Okay. And again, pashtus, at this point in the Gemara, we're talking about it ripped after the knots. Meaning, if let's say it rips all the way to the knot, that's a problem because I don't have the kedei invan, which is a slip knot amount. Even though if I were to unravel everything, I'm fine. It's talking about post of the knot and chulya part. You need an amount to make a slip knot. Says the Gemara, Iboilu, I have a kasha. Just a question, is the slip knot each one to make their own slip knot or to take all four together and make a slip knot of all four of them? Because you need more. If I have to take multiple strings and combine them, I need a little bit more because I need them to be able to be pulled together. So the question is a slip knot each one? Let's say a slip knot is 1 inch. Is each string 1 inch or do I need enough to be able to pull all the strings together to make one giant slip knot? Teku, not sure. One other kasha. Boy Ravashi, alima d'lema anvi. Let's say a slip knot, the amount of a slip knot is 1 inch. What if I have a baguette, I have tzitzis that are super, super thick, and 1 inch is not going to be enough, but if it was thinner, it would be. So it is the amount that if it was a thin tzitzis string, it would. These happen to be super thick. Super thick ones, they're not able to bend on itself. But it's the length that if it were thin, it would be enough. That's the Gemara's kasha. V'yava katina ma'an v'mai. So Amr le Rav Acha b'rei Rav le Rav Ashi. Kol shekein d'minkar mitzvah. He says that's for sure fine. Why? The point of that amount is so that it looks significant. If it's super thick, you'll see it even better. So it's for sure fine. Okay. Uman Tanu Depolagala. The Rabbi, just to finish up the daf, we said before that we started our discussion because Rebbe's shita is you need blue and white together. And if you have one without the other, you're not yotze the mitzvah. But the Chachamim disagree. They say, no, what we have nowadays, because we don't have tchelis, we just have white, you're yotze the mitzvah. Who is that Chachamim? The Gemara says, Man Tanu Depolagala the Rebbe. Hi Tanu, it's the author of the following Brisa. The Tanya, the Brisa says, Rav Yitzchak Oim Rishum Rabbi Nosson, Sh'amim Rishum Rav Yossi Aglili, Sh'amim Rishum Rav Yochanan Menuri, if you don't have tchelas, then put on white strings. Put all 4 white strings, and that you're good to go. And that's what we do nowadays. Just to finish up, we were talking before about how if some of the strings ripped off, as long as you have stubs, you're okay. I told you before that was referring to the stubs were post the knots. Post the knots. For some reason, Rava did not understand it that way. Rava understood that it was actually, when it said that it ripped off, it means including the knot area. It means it ripped off like halfway through the knots, just completely torn off, and you have the stub amount from where it's hanging on the actual baguette. Now the reason, because Rava understood it that way, so Rava said the following point. Amar Rava, Shema Mina, you see from here, Tzarich Likshar Al Kol Chulya V'Chulya. Okay, basically, what we have with our tzitzis, and this will end with this, you have the 2 knots right away. That's doraisa. Then what we do is we do 4 different chulias. We do 7, 8, 11, 13. Okay? And in between each one, we do knots. The Gemara says, you see from our Gemara that that's necessary. Why? What if it wasn't necessary to do that? Maybe all you need was 2 knots over here, do all your chulias, and then 2 knots at the very end. I'll tell you why that can't be. Because what do you see from our Gemara, said Rava? We're talking about a situation where it ripped off. And again, Rava understands that it didn't rip off after the knots. It ripped off in middle of the knots. If there's just 2 sets of knots at the beginning and at the very end, and there's nothing in between, and halfway through it ripped off, you know what's going to happen? The whole thing's going to unravel and fall apart. The very fact that you still have a nub, whatever, and it still has a structure, shows you that this system is made of multiple sections. Because if it's just 2 knots over here, and 2 knots at the end, and in between is just wrapped around, then what happens if it gets torn in the middle? Because again, that's how Rava understands it. It's not that it ripped afterwards, it's ripped in the middle. The whole thing will fall apart. And the very fact that it doesn't indicates that there's multiple sections. So if, let's say, section 3 rips off, it'll still last because you got section 2. If section 2 rips off, you still have section 1. So Rabbi says, Shema mina tzarich likshal kol chulya v'chulya. It shows you that in between each section, after you wrap it around the chulya, you make 2 knots. Why? Because if you feel that it's not necessary, you just have 2 knots at the beginning and 2 knots at the end. Once it rips off, the whole thing will fall apart. The very fact that it doesn't fall apart must be that you have to make knots in between. And the Gemara says, no, Dilma Dikter. The Gemara says, who says you have to? Maybe the case that the Gemara was dealing with is where that guy happened to make knots in between. Who says that it's necessary? Meaning, maybe taka, you don't have to. And if you don't, then if it gets ripped off in the middle, it's taka puzzle. This Brisa says it's fine because it still have nubs, it still have stubs over there. That Brisa happens to be talking about a case where a guy did. Who says that it's necessary? Maybe that guy was going mitzvah min amuvcher. But who says that it's necessary? Okay, all right, we'll stop here.